Hey guys, Nate here from True Crime Cast. Look, have you ever wished that you could go back in time and see the events that shape the true crime cases that really just fascinate you? But with newspapers.com, it's like having a time machine into the past. Dive into more than 1 billion, that's right, billion with a B, newspaper pages from 1690 all the way up to 2025 and relive the headlines that shocked entire towns. Explore newspapers from the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and beyond with just a simple search. Read the breaking news as it happened. Crime scene reports, witness testimonies, courtroom drama, you name it. Explore forgotten clues and see how the media shaped the narrative of infamous cases. But it's not just the major stories. Newspapers.com lets you dig into local mysteries, missing persons reports, and small town scandals that history, unfortunately, forgot. It's the closest thing that you can get to being there when it all unfolded. So if you're ready to dig deeper into the crimes that keep you up at night, start your journey today at newspapers.com. Just use the code TrueCrimecast at checkout for 20% off. Untold stories are waiting in the archives.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
This is True Crime Cast. I'm Jamie here with a pretty rough sounding John today.
Yeah, I'm a little under the weather, but we got to get this out, you know?
Yeah, what's going on? Why are you feeling bad?
I don't know. I mean, we were just at youth camp. I would imagine that we'll talk about that on a Bless Their Hearts. So I don't know if one of those knuckleheads got me sick. I think, I got home from camp and I mowed the yard, and I think the mold in the yard, because it's rained nonstop in 2025, I think that's why it got me, but
well,
I don't know.
I appreciate you powering through here and being with us to cover today's case, because it is a story that I think was widely overlooked due to the timing of it for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. But before we do that, I want to give a big thanks to George Smalley for a 5-star review that came in over on Apple Podcasts. Looking up a famous case, I stumbled upon this podcast, Hooked Now. They are both great and quickly became my favorite podcast. Big thanks, George. Appreciate you, buddy.
George, appreciate it. Also want to say a special thank you to Claire Bear 3000, who joined us a week ago as a True Crimecast Insider over on Patreon. Also want to thank Alexis. So Jamie, for $3 a month, you get a bonus episode each and every month. I feel like July is just around the corner, so that will be coming up soon. And then you also get our regular feed early and ad-free.
Early and ad-free. And a lot of people love the ad-free. I'm going to be honest. There are a couple shows that I have subscribed to over the years to get some of that early and exclusive content. And most of the time, if it's a show you enjoy, it is well worth it.
I think we have our housekeeping out of the way, so let's get this thing rolling, man.
Yeah, so today's case really butts up against a very famous case. Most people are familiar with the Laci Peterson case. In 2002, she was found in the San Francisco Bay. She was pregnant at the time, 27 years old, and married to a guy named Scott Peterson, who was ultimately arrested and convicted for her murder. In preparing for today's episode, we talked to our writer, Mackenzie, and she has some hot takes on Scott Peterson. We may just have to have her on Patreon to talk about that. So I think she and I may disagree in pretty big ways, which I would find entertaining. However, when Laci was found, if you're unfamiliar with the story, it was a really gruesome scene. She was mangled and had been dumped in the bay, and her body had come apart, as well as her unborn son, Connor, and they washed ashore. Scott is currently serving a life sentence for that, maintaining his innocence. Seemed to have some momentum somehow right now for appeals, but that case has been widely covered on documentaries, podcasts, movies, everything that you can imagine. But at the same time, there was another case that very few people have ever heard of, and that was another missing and murdered pregnant woman, Evelyn Hernandez.
And if I'm not mistaken, dude, this happened around the same time. I mean, just like a couple of years difference. Is that right?
Yeah, this was back before we had as much 24-hour coverage of news on social media. So I would say this was in the same news cycle. Let's put it there.
For sure. And it's actually in a similar geographic location. If you remember, the Scott Peterson, Laci Peterson case was around Modesto, California. So today we're going to be going to San Fran, which is like a 2-hour drive from each other, which I don't know if that's 2 hours with like including traffic, and it's only like a 10-minute drive without traffic. I don't know.
Traffic is terrible in that part of the country.
So Evelyn Hernandez, she was born in 1978 in El Salvador, which is not in California, but we're getting there. She was one of 3 girls, and all relocated to the U.S. when Evelyn was just 14 years old. Evelyn did her best to learn both English and American Sign Language in order to communicate with her deaf sister, Rihanna. She also participated in a Latino theater program in her neighborhood while she was in high school. Everyone knew Evelyn, and everyone that knew her said she was charismatic, and she also had a difficult relationship with her mother. By the time she was 16, her sister says that her mother had grown really strict with Evelyn, leading Evelyn to move out and stay with her friend Maria. It wasn't long after she left home that she discovered she was pregnant. Her friend Maria said Evelyn was really afraid when she found out she was pregnant, but she was also very happy at the same time. Now, the baby's father was in the Navy, and he did not want anything to do with this child, so they are not going to stay together. He does not want to parent this child.
Yeah, and that's something that happens, obviously, and it's unfortunate when a child can't grow up with both parents in the same house. As a social worker, John, the research says that that's generally when children thrive the most. But Evelyn would give birth to Alex, and then everything changed for her.
Fun fact, you can relate to this. His name was actually Alexis, but they called him Alex.
Okay, because Jamie is commonly a female name. Okay. Appreciate you, John, for bringing that up. Evelyn loved being a mother. Her son became the most important thing in her life. But being a single mom is not easy. You and I don't know, we volunteer with kids a lot. There are a lot of single moms involved, and I just don't know how they get everything. Well, I don't know how they get anything done, let alone everything.
I mean, I'm not a single dad, but if my wife leaves for a weekend, it is pure chaos. Pure chaos.
Yeah. And shocked that people survive till she gets back. But Evelyn was doing everything she could. She juggled many jobs to make ends meet, including being a vocational nurse, working at a Costco, and working at a hotel.
So like 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And trying to be there as a parent.
Right. And she's doing everything she can. She even went above and beyond that to volunteer at Alex's school. Once she saved up enough money, she rented an apartment for her and Alex in the Crocker Amazon neighborhood of San Francisco.
Soon after they moved, Evelyn crossed paths with a gentleman named Herman Albert Aguilera. He was a part-time limo driver and a mechanic for the United Airlines at the San Francisco airport, and the two began dating. He had a stable job, and Evelyn was really excited about the relationship. She was reportedly planning on introducing him to her family. And that's when she found out she was pregnant again, and she was thrilled. But Herman, like the other guy, was less than excited about the baby. He began to distance himself from Evelyn because he had conveniently forgotten to tell his girlfriend that he was married. So Evelyn did not know that he was a married man. Evelyn was devastated. After being abandoned by Alex's father, she swore that she would make sure Herman helped financially to support this baby.
And, she had to be in a place where she was hesitant to enter into a relationship that you don't want to go through the same thing again. And I've observed a lot of single mothers who are very careful. They don't want their children to get attached to somebody that's not going to be around for very long.
I've seen it go both ways. I mean, I think it's the healthier of the two options, and some just jump in head first and throw caution to the wind, and that's not good.
And I don't think that's how Evelyn addressed this either. She was trying her best to make sure that everything was set up to where her children would be supported because, like Alex, this new baby would also be the most important things in her life. She continued to be a great mom to Alex, and she was excited for the new baby, who she planned to name Fernando. On April 30th of 2002, Evelyn talked to Herman over the phone. Then she talked to her sisters about an upcoming baby shower that they'd been planning. The following day, Evelyn picked Alex up from preschool. She stopped by an ATM, and that was the last time that either of them were ever seen. At this time, she was only days away from her due date to give birth to Fernando. Her friends and family got really worried about her, obviously, especially when she didn't show up to the baby shower and didn't tell anybody she wasn't coming. John, this is somebody who was very well connected. Evelyn had a lot of friends. She was very close to her family. I mean, you and I are really good friends, and we work together on the podcast and some other things. If I didn't hear from you for a day or two, I would start to freak out.
Yeah, I mean, and we're neighbors, so we see each other all the time, or at least see each other's cars and know that we're there or not.
And they had to be really worried about Evelyn here, and especially somebody who's in if you're that pregnant, you're in a very fragile state. There's not a lot that you can, there are a lot of things you can't do to take care of yourself, make sure the baby stays healthy. And they thought that maybe she had gone into labor and been admitted to the hospital and unable to contact anybody. So they started calling hospitals around to see if a pregnant lady named Evelyn had come in and given birth or checked into the hospital, but they couldn't find her. And as it turns out, nobody had seen Alex either, who was 5 years old at the time. When they called police, it was difficult for Raina to speak with police because of her language barrier and the fact that she was both deaf and mute. So made for a very complex conversation for her to report her friend missing. She would eventually show up and show the police officers pictures of Evelyn, pictures of Alex, and she showed them pictures of Evelyn being pregnant so that they would know what condition she was in when she had disappeared.
So the inspector from San Francisco Police Department was assigned to Evelyn's case. Her name was Holly Pera. After seeing the circumstances in this case, she immediately grew concerned. And I mean, as if it isn't concerning enough, but then to find out she's pregnant, that has to raise the bar significantly, in my opinion. So she got straight to work. She interviewed Herman, and he said that he was driving for the limo company the evening that Evelyn was last seen. He said that he had talked to her for a couple of times earlier in that day, but that he had not seen her since. So then investigators went to Evelyn's apartment, and everything looked normal. There wasn't anything out of place. The detective said that it didn't look like there had been any kind of struggle. It looked to me like she was expecting to come back. So, you know, that makes me think back to the case that got you and I started in true crime, and that was the disappearance of the beauty queen down in Georgia.
Tara Grinstead.
They went to her apartment multiple times and found similar things until they really slowed down. And like a private investigator came in and looked and saw some things that police may have looked over. But to the detective, it looked like nothing was out of place. She just left and was going to come back. So they also put a watch on her bank account and on her phone. And there was not really any activity in those things that could be helpful. There wasn't any activity at all. A few days into the investigation, they found Evelyn's wallet in a gutter 10 miles from her home. Inside the wallet, there was $40 and a disability check made out to Evelyn. If she was, I don't know, attacked and this was a robbery, I would suspect that there would not be $40 in the wallet. It would just be empty, and perhaps they would have even made her cash the disability check. But again, both of those things were there. So that tells me it wasn't a robbery motive, whatever happened to her. They searched this area. They did not find anything else related to Evelyn or Alex. And again, Alex is missing too, right? So the wallet was found a few blocks away from the limo company that Herman worked for, so he was immediately brought in for questioning and officially named as a person of interest.
A lot of times we cover cases of missing persons and police will say, well, they probably just ran away, or they may have gone on to start another life. Maybe they did this voluntarily. But I think due to Evelyn's condition of being pregnant, to being expected at the baby shower and to having a child with her, that kind of cut through some of the, I don't want to say eye rolls, but the proverbial red tape of getting a missing person investigation started. So thankfully, they were able to really jump right in. And like you said, they started with Herman. And when we get back from the break, we'll talk about Herman and his reaction to finding out that his girlfriend / ex-girlfriend and her son were nowhere to be found. When the police went to Herman and started asking him questions about his relationship with Evelyn and what he knew about her whereabouts, he told them that he had tried to contact her as well. He had tried to call her multiple times back on May 1st, but like the others, he was unable to reach her. He said the last time that he physically saw Evelyn was back on April 30th, when he had brought a bed over for Alex and they put it together in her apartment. He initially cooperated with investigators, but eventually he found a lawyer and stopped speaking with police. John, I'm going to tell you, to me, that makes me feel like he knows something. But after having done this for 8 years, I would do the same thing. Lawyer up.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to a court proceeding for a speeding ticket without an attorney present.
Yeah, I've just seen so many things go south for an individual trying to do the right thing, and they end up getting in trouble because they don't have an attorney there to guide them. So you may say, if I ask for an attorney, I'll look guilty. And I just told you what happened to Herman, and I get it. He still made the right decision here, regardless of what he knew. So the investigator, Para, interviewed Herman's wife to find out what he had told her about the day that Evelyn had gone missing. She said that he had been driving for a limo company that evening. When he got home, they watched TV, had a regular evening at the house, and then he went to bed. But she did admit that she knew that he had had an affair with Evelyn and that she was expecting a baby. The investigator said that she got the feeling that Herman's wife was not going to say anything negative about Herman when questioned about Evelyn. Obviously, she wasn't happy that he was having an affair, but she wouldn't even bash him about that in front of police officers because she didn't want him to look guilty, I guess.
Which seems odd because if I were in her shoes, I would be pissed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I would also, if God forbid I'm in this woman's situation, if my significant other could potentially be responsible alone, then I want to know about that. But her saying that, you know, she's not saying anything negative. She admits that she knew, but doesn't seem all that pissed off. To me, being the skeptic and maybe a psychopath, that kind of implicates her a little bit in my mind.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not a good look if you're appearing to look cooperative and you're doing and acting in unexpected ways, then it can be tough for you.
On July 24th, 2002, 2 months after Evelyn was reported missing, her partial remains were discovered floating in the San Francisco Bay.
Stop.
Does that sound a little familiar to you?
That's exactly where Laci Peterson's remains were found. Not the exact spot, but the same general area.
So Evelyn's body was obviously had been there for a while. It was in a very advanced state of decomposition. Both of her arms and head were missing. The unborn baby was also missing, but because of how bad the body had decomposed, it's really unclear how the baby came to be separated from the mother. Was it part of the murder? Was it part of the decomposition? We don't know, and her body was too badly decomposed to know for certain. 24-year-old Evelyn's cause of death could not be determined, and there was no sign of 5-year-old Alex anywhere.
And what you mentioned, not knowing how the baby became to be separated from the mother was a big point of contention in the Laci Peterson case, because in some ways it goes to show if the baby was in this stage, then it's likely that it had been born outside of the lake or outside of the bay and then had been essentially thrown in with Laci, or was the decomposition what led to it? And that would help you identify the timing for Laci specifically of when she was put in the water, also maybe when she was killed, and that would have given some evidence. And Laci was just found a few months after Evelyn was found. She was also missing her head, arms, and her legs, so theories started bouncing around that there may be a serial killer in the area targeting pregnant women. But police felt like they had enough evidence to show that these were two separate cases, completely unrelated, and that they didn't have a serial killer on their hands, so they approached them as completely separate instances as they were. Laci's story, as we know, is the one that got all of the TV coverage. Scott had a girlfriend immediately. He dyed his hair and had a bunch of cash and tried to flee. Like, it was this whole thing. A friend of Evelyn told the San Francisco Chronicle in 2003, this girl, talking about Laci, she's white, they have money, and there's a family behind her. Who cares about Evelyn? The first time I heard Laci's case, I got flashbacks from Evelyn because it's the same case. It's very hard to see why one girl gets more attention than the other. Evelyn's friends and family created flyers of her, put pictures of Alex out there, distributed everything throughout the Bay Area. They organized search parties, and they tried to generate interest from the media. But again, Laci Peterson was the main news topic, and Evelyn, who had actually been found 2 months earlier, was kind of the secondary headline.
And Mackenzie, our writer, kind of has the receipts showing the difference. When Laci went missing, her family spoke with the press and held interviews almost immediately. But however, when Evelyn went missing, police did not hold a press conference until nearly a month later. Laci made the front page of the newspaper 4 times, and there were also 28 other stories about her in other parts of the newspaper. Evelyn, however, was only mentioned 4 times in the paper, and never one time was she on the front page. When Laci went missing, 30 police officers were tasked with her search. They used helicopters, dogs, bicycles, horse-mounted officers, and water rescue units. There were nearly 900 civilians who helped search for Laci. Now, one major difference is that Laci was from Modesto. Now, this is a smaller suburb. It was less spread out. It had more resources, whereas Evelyn was from San Francisco. Resources are more tight there. But you can't ignore that Laci was a young, beautiful white woman from a good family and a cheating husband. Evelyn was an unmarried immigrant, was dating a married man. Laci deserved all the attention she got, but Evelyn deserved it too. Jamie, is it as simple as Laci's white, has money, Evelyn is an immigrant, or is it because Laci was found after Evelyn and it does appear to look like a very similar mode or a similar MO, and we could have a serial killer? Is it that angle, or is it just who you're connected to and how much money do you have kind of thing?
Yeah, I think if they were going based on timing, the first story would get the coverage and the second one would kind of be the secondary headline if that was the way things are going. I think it did have to do with location, finances, prominent families, Scott being an immediate suspect who, again, looked really shady from the get-go. I think all of those things played into it, but I mean, they have missing white woman syndrome as an actual term nowadays for this exact reason. It's usually the women of color that get less coverage in general, and this is a perfect example of it. In fact, I think this is one of the stories that kind of inspired conversations that would lead to that. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of me does think that, if there is a second pregnant woman who is found in the San Francisco Bay, that triggers people like you and I, and then reporters to say, hey, there's a serial killer targeting pregnant women in this area. But up until now, and I mean, it doesn't seem like the cases are related according to police. And so it does make me wonder, did the coverage start because of the similarities in the cases and Laci was the second one? Or is it awful and just because of the class differences, there was a difference in the coverage and searches?
Yeah, I wish I felt differently, but I think it's heavily because of the race and class differences. neither Laci nor Evelyn ever had their cause of death determined because, like you said, their bodies, when they were found, were heavily deteriorated from the water, from the tide, from likely being tied down with something which caused body parts to separate. Laci's autopsy files were sealed after her husband's murder trial. Evelyn's unborn son and 5-year-old Alex have never been found. Like I said, Laci's son, Connor, was found very close to her. Scott Peterson is currently serving a life sentence, but no one has ever been charged in the murder of Evelyn Hernandez.
Now, am I crazy, or is Scott Peterson, is he working with the Innocence Project to try to get a new trial? What's going on there?
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of different things. The California Innocence Project is involved, but I have heard conflicting reports about whether they are associated in general with the actual Innocence Project or if this is a separate group, because it would be fascinating. I don't know. The Innocence Project gets involved in a lot of cases, and not all of them I agree with. I would heavily disagree with them being involved in this one. And I think that's why there's some controversy about which group is this actually with. And this is a point of contention with Mackenzie, I think. I think she believes that Scott Peterson needs another look and that he may actually be innocent. Some of that may be because of Evelyn's case. There are also some nearby robberies the day that Laci was killed. But again, we're still talking about Scott Peterson trying to get out, and I don't hear anybody talking about finding Evelyn's killer.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not been found, and Alex is still unaccounted for.
Yeah, unfortunately, I cannot assume that Alex is. I don't know. I go worst case scenario. I hope that he is still living, and that we find him, and that would be wonderful. Just not so sure that's how things are gonna play out, or if we're ever actually gonna find Alex or Fernando, her unborn son, which, if she was killed before giving birth, likely his body would be somewhere nearby. This was 23 years ago. I don't think we're going to find it at this point.
So what's going on with Herman and his wife right now?
We don't know where Herman is. So he was the only person of interest ever named in this case. He was the individual that impregnated Evelyn. They were in a relationship. Herman's wife didn't know about it. But it does seem like that they still have somewhat, or had somewhat of a working relationship. He had helped her put the bed together. He was planning on being available for the baby shower. We don't even know if he's still with his wife, who was with him at the time. Evelyn's friends and family have never stopped looking for Alex. They've never stopped looking for answers. They have faith that Alex is still alive. He was born on November 6th of 2006. And was 5 years old when he went missing. At that time, he was 4 feet tall and 45 pounds. He's a Hispanic male with brown hair and brown eyes. Today, he would be 28 years old. So it's really hard to tell what he would look like. We have a friend that works with an agency where she does age progression on children. I would love to see if she's ever worked on this case. I think Paloma Galzi is who we have worked with before. She did a guest spot on True Crime Cast talking about her work. I would love to see if she's ever looked at or heard of this case to do any age progression on Alex. But the family does have faith that he is out there. If he is out there, he may have some answers about what happened to his mom, potentially who, I have to assume somebody took both of them and either killed Evelyn and discarded her in the bay and took Alex with them elsewhere, or ended up taking both their lives. But if you have any information on Alex Hernandez, please call the San Francisco Police Department at 415-553-1071. But I don't know if this is one we're going to get solved, John. It just hasn't been in the public eye enough for people to be looking for things.
I'm really interested to know more about what's going on with Herman currently. Is he still with his wife from back then? I mean, we covered a case recently where once there was a split between the two people, then kind of one person started talking and it led to a case being solved. I'm in no way insinuating that Herman is definitely guilty of anything, but I really feel like there's more to this story that somebody knows about. And obviously we need to know more details about what happened so that this case can be solved. Almost 25 years is way too long to go with no justice for Evelyn or Alex. Her family deserves to know what happened to her.
I'm glad you brought that up, that if Herman is separated from his wife, then maybe police need to talk to her again. That investigators got the feeling that they didn't really believe what she was saying. She wasn't being forthright with everything she knew about Herman. It was as if she was defending him. So would she be more willing to say some things she knew now? I don't know that for certain, but I would love to at least have that conversation happen with authorities so they can follow up with those questions to see what his wife knows. Now, they may still be together, so it may be not a worthy venture, but I think it's worth at least looking into and revisiting it. I know there are so many cold cases in this area. California's got a long list of those, and you can't take them all up. But I feel like this is one that almost just because it got so little attention, I think it deserves the attention now that it never got back then.
Absolutely. I really do think this is one that can still be solved. Somebody knows something. And man, I wish that there was so much more funding available for putting someone on these cold cases. I would absolutely love if people like you and I could go through some trainings and get more involved in stuff like that. I just think it's really interesting, and these families, they never stop deserving justice. So I wish there was more boots on the ground that could help with these kinds of cases.
And that's what it's going to take here. Obviously, it didn't get the media attention. People aren't out there looking for Alex the way that they should be. People aren't listening to conversations with Evelyn in mind of, well, this person mentioned seeing somebody out at the bay at this time. Like, it's just not something we would be aware of if somebody brought up facts to us or in front of us. So I think it's definitely going to need some love and attention from the right authorities. And if we can do anything to move that forward, if anybody has any ideas, would love to see that happen, because this family is still looking for Alex. They're still looking for justice, and they deserve both.
Absolutely. If there are any updates on this case, of course, we will keep you posted over on Patreon. And again, $3 a month helps support the show. But then you also get a bonus episode of True Crime Cast every month and early ad-free content as well.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to our episodes each and every week, and we really appreciate all the support that we get and appreciate you guys listening.
Until next crime, this has been True Crime Cast.
You've listened to True Crime Cast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.